Hello everyone and welcome back from the break. It's a real pleasure and an honor to share this moment with all of you. My name is Fabian Gröning. I'm the project manager here at LUMA for strategic initiatives, and I have the pleasure to introduce you to the next program point of today's program. We will now have the privilege of listening to a playlist conceived by Paul Purgas, especially for this occasion. He conceived this playlist as a kind of sonic survey on E.A.T's multiple activities through sound and music. Paul Plongez is a UK-based artist and musician working with sound, performance and installation. His research explores the interwoven histories of design, music and spiritual philosophy with a focus on cultural exchange between East and West, and especially concerning modernities. He's the editor of the essay collection Subcontinental Synthesis, which I have here with me, which is excellent. Everybody should have a read on this. And which he published in 2024. And he recently showed his work at Southwark Park Galleries, as well as CTM Festival and Transmediale. Thank you, Paul, for being here, for having this playlist with you. And also thank you to Getty Research Institute for letting us play a piece from their collection. Thank you.
Okay, so just to start, actually, it was a little bit of a puzzle to put something like this together. But it's obviously that sound and music are such an integral part to the history of E.A.T. that it became an object of fascination, and also a sense where some of the sound and the music components were actually quite challenging. They weren't necessarily seeking to, they were seeking out to break new ground. And I think in that case, it was definitely a bit of a challenge in assembling a playlist in which, actually, it offers an enticing gateway into that world. So actually, the first piece I'm going to play is actually one part of that puzzle. I was considering playing a part of Variation 7, which was presented at 9 Evenings. But actually, I thought I'd ease you in a little bit more gently. So I decided to shift over to Variations 5, which was actually a collaboration between John Cage, David Tudor, Gordon Mummer, and the Merce Cunningham Dance Company. And actually, this project has a particular interest for me, actually, because actually, whilst I was watching it, I realized that many of the people that were present inside this performance had a specific connection to India. So Variations 5 was produced in 1965. But a year prior to that, in 1964, the Merce Cunningham Dance Company did its tour of India from Delhi, Bombay, and Ahmedabad. And in that tour, Cage, Tudor, Rauschenberg, Merce Cunningham attended at the NID, met the Sarabhai family. So the seeds of the story are very much there, very, very much present in this scene. But also the dancer Barbara Lloyd, who participates in the performance part of the Merce Cunningham Dance Company, she was actually slated up for the second edition of American Artists in India, a project which subsequently didn't happen. But again, lots of pieces of the puzzle were present in this performance. So I couldn't actually get a really great copy of this, but it's good enough to kind of communicate. And actually, the film is shot by Stan van der Beek, and features video distortion and manipulation by Namjoon Paik as well. So it's an all-star cast assembled for this performance. I guess a few more points just to add, actually, the E.A.T connection for this. So Billy Kluver worked with Cage, Tudor, and Mummer on creating the interactive system for the dancers here. So the photocells that were used, the stage lights were shone onto photocells around the performers, and as the dancers would break those beams, it would activate, in theory, different sound sources and different aspects of synthesis. Also, once again, connecting to the India story with David Tudor, this was the first collaboration between David Tudor, John Cage, and Robert Moog as well. So Bob Moog designed the antennas that you'll see the dancers moving around. And that system actually went on to become the Moog commercially available theremin that you can still actually buy today. Okay, it's okay. It's okay. So, actually, that's the dance that I mentioned. Barbara Lloyd is actually the person who was doing the headstand in that video, and I think that one of the other aspects of the performance was the introduction to contact mics. So, Merce Cunningham decided that he wanted to integrate live electronics, but also have non-dance related objects being integrated into the performance. So there's a plant which is kind of wired up to contact mics, and I think actually Barbara Lloyd has some contact mics on her head when she does the headstand. And so the next piece I'm going to talk about is actually one of the accompanying sound pieces that was produced for the Pepsi Pavilion. And actually there was a lot of E.A.T were approached for a much more expansive sound and music program in Osaka. A lot of it didn't come through to fruition. Works by Alvin Lucio and Terry Riley, and Pauline Oliveros as well, were kind of slated. And they, you know, I get a feeling that Pepsi were struggling towards the end of the conversation with E.A.T on that journey particularly. But one Pauline Oliveros piece that did make it to the Pepsi Pavilion is this piece titled just Music for Expo 70. And actually, Oliveros does write about this piece, or introduce it, in her text, Harmonic Anatomy, Women in Improvisation. So it actually felt appropriate to read that text as a lead-in to this piece. So she writes, "It was not until 1969, the threshold of the emerging women's movement in the 70s, that I explored improvisation with other women. I organized the women's ensemble in San Diego. No one in the university environment was going to recognize this need or do anything about it. So I set about inviting the women to work with me. I was teaching in the music department at the University of California, San Diego during those years. The group met at my house in Leucadia, California every week for 2 years, exploring non-verbal time together, mind-body exercises, dreams, journal writing, and reading, and improvisation through my sonic meditations. The women's ensemble was an important step for me in experiencing the energy of working with women in improvisation, informed by the concerns that we shared with one another. Occasionally, we performed concerts as well. We were creating a kind of meditational improvisation based on the layering of sounds. There we recorded music for Expo 70 that was featured in the Pepsi Pavilion in the Expo 70 in Osaka." So I was having a little joke with a friend recently that I should have rebranded as DJ E.A.T for this session. But so the next piece that we're going to play is actually connected. This piece and the next piece, in theory, are connected to the American Artists in India program that included Steve Paxton, Tricia Brown, Yvonne Rayner, and Marion Zazila and Lamont Young. And the poster that we're seeing here is the Dushyanth Kenda image that was produced for the American Artists in India program, and it features the hand of the dancer Chandralekha, who I'll come on to speak about Chandralekha later in this session. And actually the poster itself had this really, I think Julie mentioned there were about 100, 150 of these produced, but each poster had an ink print of Chandralekha's thumb in the bottom corner. So I do covet one of these days, trying to get one of these. A really, really beautiful program. And actually, so as I mentioned, the artists, that also included Terry Riley, that was in the American Artists in India program. And actually the piece I'm going to play now is actually a later recording by Young and Zazila. But it corresponds to their time in India in 1970 as part of the E.A.T program. And there they were spending time with Pandit Prannath, the Hindustani vocalist. And their relationship with Prannath became spanned decades, in fact. And they were part of the reason. I think Prannath lived in their loft in New York when he came over and was spending time in America. Prannath also being a mentor to Terry Riley as well. So both being very, very connected. And what's interesting about actually Prannath's approach is that in a way he's quite distinct in the history of Indian classical music, because Prannath is really interested in the alap, so the early part, the beginning part of a raga, and this is there's no it's very unstructured in terms of time, in terms of those moments, and Prannath became very interested in not only playing and manipulating the sense of time, but in order to do that, became very interested in allowing for a very, very stable set of frequencies, a very stable set of harmonics in which a vocalist could be. So the fundamental drone of the tambura that would sit underneath the vocalist was so distinct and so steady in its frequency that the vocalist could then harmonize with that. And actually, this method, it's an interesting part of music history, this actually, because it ties a lot to the continuum of electronic music in parallel, the idea of oscillators and very, very stable ways of generating sound frequencies. The piece that we're going to listen to now is actually built entirely from two of Pandit Prannath's tampuras. And these had a very modified bridge in order to create these stable frequencies that emphasized, what are called seventh order harmonics. So very, very stable harmonics. So it's a fantastic piece of music, and it's very, very purist in its approach. We're amongst friends here. I'm not the greatest fan of Lamont Young's vocalizations, actually, but I am a great fan of these drone pieces. So we shall enjoy one now. I was just looking at the people on the bean bags at the back. Probably best seats in the house, I think. And it's actually just, I was just thinking as I was listening to this as well, is that this kind of crossover between electronic music and Indian classical music, especially through this portal of Pandit Pranath, is a particularly special dialogue. You know, and that clearly was nurtured specifically by American artists in India as the program. And when you look at, I genuinely think that you can plot a line straight through from Pandit Pranath, Lamont Young, the Swedish composer Catherine Christa Hennicks, and then through to a new generation of composers like Ellen Arkborough and Kali Malone. There's a kind of continuum that's kind of travelled through time. And I think actually American artists in India sit somewhere within that thread, actually, in a very special way. So the next piece is actually, once again, I mentioned by Terry Riley, also an American artist in India. I was very fascinated when I went to the National Institute of Design to do my research on David Tudor's time there. I was very impressed to see some of the records that were in the NID's collection from the 1960s and 1970s. There was a few surprises, actually. So the Indians really liked Wendy Carlos's Switched On Bach. That was a huge hit in India. But also Terry Riley's records, A Rainbow and a Curved Dare particularly, was very much appreciated in India at the NID. And it was only recently when I was at the archives at Tate Britain and I was going through the E.A.T papers, I kind of perennially revisit them, and each time I go, I find a new nugget that's embedded inside it. And on my recent visit, I was reading the Bay Area E.A.T group's reports of what they'd been enjoying. And there was this film by the sculptor Arlo Acton with a soundtrack by Terry Riley. I'd never heard of this before. And it turned out that the Bay Area group just kept on screening this film. Like, you know, at least 3 times it was screened in their group. And it was actually produced initially for, I guess, local TV in California by the Dilexi Foundation. Dilexi, yeah. So it was produced for them, and actually it was part of a series in which there were programs by Frank Zappa and Andy Warhol did parts for this 12-part series. But this piece particularly, Music for Bulls, it's titled. And when you watch it, you can kind of see why the Bay Area were into it. It was pretty special. a really, really beautiful piece of footage. That is, I had to really, really dig through the backwaters of the internet to find that. It is out there. The whole thing is available for you to see. And actually, also thinking about that, also the Variations 5 video is up. I think it's on YouTube. It's about 45 minutes in total. So if you ever feel like, if you have a spare 45 minutes, I would encourage you to watch Variations 5 as well in completion. So I'm just going to jump over and talk about, what has been the area of my own focus in my research. The electronic music studio that was set up in the National Institute of Design in 1969 with support of David Tudor. The piece that I'm going to play is actually connected also to Osaka, and this was for the Indian Pavilion that was designed by Jasbir Rosemary Sukhdev, and it was, it was this kind of quite science fiction monument, a kind of huge dome that mirrored the language of kind of historic ancient Indian architecture, whilst also having this quite sci-fi flying saucer feel to it. And within this dome was a piece that was composed by Atul Desai. He's one of 5 composers at the National Institute of Design, working from 1969 to 1972. This piece that Atul Desai produced was a series of compositions. He was a quite well known at the time Indian classical musician. So he fused some of the production that was made with the Moog synthesizer that was placed at the NID with some of his Indian classical music to create this sound collage that was presented inside the dome. So I was very grateful that Val included that audio piece in the exhibition Electric Dreams at Tate Modern. It was really, really special to actually see that piece, exhibited in the museum. So I'm still very, very grateful for that. I am thinking, what's interesting about what was going on at the NID, and I'll come on to talk about it in the next section actually, is that, technically the NID Sound Studio is not an E.A.T project. But my argument is that it's the most E.A.T non-E.A.T project. So it's very much, whilst the Sarapis are working very, very closely on multiple projects with both E.A.T via the New York end, via the Moderna Musée. The Ahmedabad is existing as a transit point between New York and Osaka. So many of the artists that are traveling to and from Japan are stopping off in India. And the lines become very, very blurry between E.A.T's activities, I think, in India. And it was interesting to hear about what Nancy was saying earlier about how Billy was framing things during that period, and some of it being perhaps not entirely clear on terms of what the position or what the messaging was. And I think India is very illustrative of that. But within that, one of the connections actually between the E.A.T network and the Sarabhais actually dates back to 1946, and that was when Geeta Sarabhai, that founded the electronic music studio or the sound studio in the mid-1960s at the NID, she came to New York in 46 to study with John Cage. She was very interested in the threats that Western classical music posed to India and to the traditions of Indian classical music. So she kind of went there as a bit of a spy, I think, to try and discern what was going on with Western classical music. And actually, it led to kind of quite a rich set of conversations and exchanges with John Cage during that period. So I'm actually going to play one of her sound collages that was produced at the NID in 1969. One thing just to say about Geeta Sarabhai as well is that actually the film Events in a Cloud Chamber, which is a very early film that came for Vision Exchange Workshop in Mumbai, that was produced by Akbar Padamsee. Geeta Sarabhai did quite a long entirely electronic composed soundtrack to that film, which is lost. But that is one of the treasures that one of these days we hope someone's going to find in an archive somewhere. So we're now going to shift from Ahmedabad to New York, but there is a thread that connects these two actually. So this was the performance. This was the laser concert at the Xenon Discotheque in New York in 1979, and there's actually a really great essay by Una Kai called "When David Tudor Went Disco." And that is with the vinyl release Monobird that was released by the Danish record label Topos a few years ago. And this is an unusual event because this was kind of a fundraiser, I think, for E.A.T in New York, but it kind of didn't happen, like Lowell Cross. It was meant to be a very similar system that was used for video laser at the Clam Room in Osaka. So a type of audio reactive laser system with sound and music, triggering lasers. But I think what happened is that the water cooling system for the laser broke down. And so halfway through I think the first performance was a complete train wreck and they cancelled it. But David Tudor came back the next day to produce a series of performances and improvisations in the space whilst the system was set up. So these remained. And actually the connection to Ahmedabad being that the piece that he used as the foundation for this improvisation was a tape called Monobird that he produced at the National Institute of Design and then has manipulated and improvised on top of it. So it's this is a real kind of sweet spot between that Underbud-New York connection. So I just wanted to add, actually, that next year is going to be the centenary of David Tudor from January. There is a major exhibition in Philadelphia that's being planned to coincide with that. There was actually very little being organised in Europe, we found. And so I formed part of a kind of a group with EMS, the electronic music studio in Stockholm, to create a series of events, hopefully across Europe next summer. One will be at, let me try and remember where it's going to be. I think with a very special event, it's going to be at the Moderna Museum, actually, in April next year. And that was the site of David Tudor's Rainforest 4 in 1974. It was presented there. So we're planning a very special thing at the Moderna Museum, 2 days, I think, at Cafe Otto in September, and the Sibelius Academy in Helsinki. So there might be a few more events, so hopefully it's kind of a fan exercise here, because we don't have much resources to do it, but I think it's become a passion project. Also, actually, I think I just wanted to mention, I think Simon, at the opening of this conference, mentioned Knut and Ulla Viggen as well as being part of the ecosystem that was surrounding art and technology during this moment. And also I saw Ulla Viggen on the Radical Software program as well. So I think it's important to think about, I think, that Swedish end, Fylkingen, EMS, Fylkingen itself also being connected to the Stockholm Festival of Art and Technology in '66, that was kind of the 9 evenings side road as well. So there's, so yeah, that Moderna Museum event will be very much looking forward to it. The final piece I'm going to play, I probably should have a trigger warning with this audio, because it stresses me out every time I listen to it. And it is part of there's 8 cassette reels in the Getty's collection, and I was very grateful to be given access to listen through to what was about 6 hours of recordings of meetings between E.A.T, the group of engineers from E.A.T, and a group of scientists, psychologists, and technicians from India. And also Bob Whitman was there and Julie Martin. So it was a kind of roundtable conversation in Delhi and to Ahmedabad as well. And it's kind of quite peaceful in Delhi. Everyone's quite well behaved. But by the time it gets to Ahmedabad, it gets quite tense because it's crunch time. And I think this piece of audio really brings together, really articulates the complexities of not just the frictions between artists and engineers, but also what happens when you try and translate that dialogue into a totally different cultural setting. And this conversation is, it just proves that point. And leading the charge on this is an engineer from the Xerox Corporation that joins the E.A.T representation group. And he's quite forthright in his ideas. He's a quite strong-willed person. And what you hear in this recording is this exchange. You will hear banging, and that banging is actually the banging of fists on tables. So brace yourself.
Billy, the one thing I must take exception with you on, because I cannot accept that this can be imposed upon me by consensus, since it so violates everything that is so basic about television.
Well, that's conventional U.S. TV procedure. That's.
I'm sorry, Bob, I can't buy that. I don't know what we may be creating a whole new medium here. But if we're talking about television here, I am not going to have imposed upon me by consensus the fact that there exists some sort of abstraction which has no reality to any television system or to any foreseeable television system.
First of all, I would disagree.
Well,
about two things.
I just wanted to register my dissent from the consensus.
What we're talking about is.
And I thought you were a nice guy.
What we're talking about is a system in which television is.
I will not accept that the world is flat because the vote is 10 to 1. If I'm
I think.
I didn't hear.
I said what we're talking about, as Herb has been saying, is a system, an educational system, if you want to use that word, in which TV is the technological part. One part. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that there are many other TV procedures that have been used by other people besides NBC and CBS.
Can you cite some for me, Bob? What some of these many others are?
A lot of artists, for example, have been using TV completely outside that structure.
They have been taking cameras, single cameras, and in variable static modes.
I'm sorry.
Or binary modes. They have been.
That isn't not true, David. Not at all. So.
I don't think what you're talking about has universal applicability.
Of course it doesn't. But neither does NBC, CBS, standard U.S. TV procedure, which is what...
This sounds great. We have in that catchphrase everything that sounds negative. NBC, ABC, TV. How can you argue against that? How can you argue for that? It's like arguing for the devil. It's like arguing against Americanism, or in this case, Indianism. And you put me on a semantic defensive. And I'm not going to accede to that.
But wait a minute. But before, we've already accepted the values.
Matter of fact, the whole rhetoric was devised by a guy I suspect you have some respect for if you know him. A guy by the name of Gilbert Seldes, who led a group of 4 guys back in the late 30s at CBS and devised the basic rhetoric. And is one of the most aesthetically sensitive and decent guys around today, which is why he finally left television.
Tell me one thing, Dave, tell me one thing. I, as an expert on sociology and social change, why should I at all care for your goddamn technology? When you reserve the right to present me and my ideas the way you like, without giving me the basic source, what I am going to communicate, I don't think that I'm going to use it.
I was the one who, you remember, who said last night that we are essentially intruding here, and that for us to come in and to attempt to impose a television system here, or a body of content here, or a manner of presentation here, from our American perspective, is something we can't do.
All right. Would you give us a chance then to, I'm going to present a resentment also. I feel very seriously handicapped here, being used as an informant rather than as a colleague. Because every time the ideas that I've presented, which are culture bound and which are very specific, have been bypassed by Billy and have been allotted to Rothkopf. I'm not talking of personal jealousies, but I'm feeling a very strong resentment as a role of an Indian expert on the situation. 1. And 2, would you give us the opportunity to develop a model where we would like you to say, these are our essential requirements, these are our essential problems, we don't know the know-how of this area, would you give it to us? Or you want to tell us all the constraints, all the darn things, and tell us this is relevant to your culture, or relevant to the situation, not even culture. I'm not talking of Indian or America. I'm talking of a very simple thing. You have experience, universal experience. Within that universal experience, my living experience of my limitations are a factor which you're ignoring. And I'm saying, give us a chance then to spend another morning tomorrow to see whether we can put down the parameters of the situation in which we are going to operate. Up till now, I feel that we have not put down the parameters of the situation in which we are going to operate. And then perhaps we demand of you to give us a know-how or how within the situation you would develop a marriage between the instruction and TV technology. Instructional technology, which Dr. Roth is talking about, and the TV technology you're talking about, how can we achieve a wedding in the type of situation we are going to operate?
So that's quite a long piece, but I think it really leads into the next section in a very explicit way. It really articulates some of the complexities we'll be unraveling there. So thank you.